It's an interesting question, Tony. Let me see if I can answer it. You can maybe ask again if you guys would give Tony a second chance here if I don't get to it. I think anytime you get to your second full year together, it's really your first, right? So last year we come in late January and we're kind of in a sprint to April. So I would say overall you feel much better about your process starting from March of 2016 all the way to April 2017. That said, I don't think specifically for us we would look at it as this year we need to take a quarterback, or we feel better about taking a quarterback. We felt good about our evaluations last year at the position, but also our evaluation of where we were as a roster. That said, that's a position of emphasis for us.
Is there an urgency there, though? I mean, you're coming off a 1-15 season. You lost a quarterback.
Yeah, it's a good question. I think anytime you don't have your starting quarterback, there should always be an urgency. It's our belief, and there is.
Hey, Sashi, you guys talked a lot last year about draft capital, acquiring picks. Now, you traded one for Jamie Collins and re-signed him. Has the focus sort of changed for you guys now to turning those picks into players, or are you still out there trying to acquire more picks?
Yeah, so we've talked about this a bit. I think, early on we understood we needed to increase the number of picks so that we could really replenish our roster with young talent. I think we started to do that last year, and positioned ourselves to do that this year with higher quality picks earlier on in the draft. And so you'll see us with 2 1s and 2 2s this year. We do like that positioning. We think it's important for us to get where we need to go. Back to kind of having some of the patience that Tony asked about. The way I would see it this year is, it's never an intent just to acquire picks for the sake of picks. Those picks do turn into players, however. And so I think important for us as we made the decisions last year was that we were getting high quality picks this year or last year. And so that's why you see the 1s and 2s. And we did pass on opportunities to acquire more picks. We really wanted the quality, and we think we've accomplished that. Now we need to execute.
Especially when you're looking at having the number 1 pick, do you guys have a draft board right now? And is it the guy at the top? And how much can that change between now and April 27th?
Yeah, I think most teams have kind of a rough sense of what their draft board would look like. We rely very heavily on the film and watching the film through the college season, and so that part of it is done. Now we need to understand the people more. There are a number of talented guys that will be in consideration for us at the number 1 pick. So we have the one guy that's at the top of our board.
Off that, one of the popular narratives this time of year is players jumping up draft boards and whatnot. From your position, though, realistically, how much does the needle actually move on players this time of year?
Yeah, I would say it can move more drastically downward than upward, at this point, as you just get a chance to know the character of some of these players a little bit more. But the film should kind of steady you in terms of the evaluation of the talent, which is the core of what we're trying to evaluate. But the character piece of it matters too. We do try to, from a process standpoint, I think Andrew, Bobby Vega, Ken Kovacs do a really good job of getting our process in a place where we're not too swayed by a vertical jump or a broad jump or what have you, or an interview, here at the Combine.
When the season ended, would you be willing to give up your number 12 overall pick for the right veteran quarterback?
I wouldn't answer that because I know what you're really asking.
When the season ended, when the season ended, the position of center was kind of unclear. You've since changed offensive line coaches. How would you describe the position of center right now? Is that a need position?
It's an interesting question. I think, to be frank, Cam probably would tell you he would have liked to play better at that position. Greco obviously stepped in for a number of games until he was hurt. Ryder came in and he actually didn't have it. So for us, I think we do have a number of young players. We're actually excited about Gabe Eichert, excited about Anthony Fabiano, excited about Austin at that position. I feel really good about the young talent we have there. I think we do have some ways to go to develop a guy that can be a starter and play for us and play against the 3-4 nose tackles in our division that we're going to line up against. But we do feel like we've got a number of young players there that we feel great about.
Do you have in your mind, at least on film, a set order of those top 3 quarterbacks?
Yes.
And want to share it with us?
No,
Do you think there's a franchise quarterback in this class?
I wouldn't answer that either. At this point, I think, and this goes for, I know there will be questions about Garrett and Allen, all the guys at the top of the draft, and hopefully you guys can understand this. I just think it would be inappropriate for me and not wise to comment on how we feel about any individual player.
Just one on Trubisky. This whole deal about will he be 6'3", 6'2.5", 6'2". How important is that inch to you?
Ask Drew Brees. Probably not that important in the grand scheme. If he can play, he can play. Russell Wilson and others have been under what has been the standard NFL profile. So we want to understand certainly that piece of it. It's an aspect of what we'll look at. And it does help to be able to see over the taller offensive lineman, but that's not going to necessarily on its own disqualify a guy.
When you are evaluating these college quarterbacks, how much do you feel like they sort of are what they are, or how much, if they're maybe lacking in a certain area, do you think you can make them better once they get to Cleveland?
Yeah, I think you have to go in understanding they're going to have to develop, almost all of them. People have asked me this. I don't know, kind of what the future will be for Jared Goff. We are very high on him. I think he's got a great opportunity moving ahead. But the reality is, this is a very hard position to play in a very competitive and different league than what most of these college quarterbacks are seeing. So we go in with a development mindset. And understanding we'll need to be patient and work hard with these guys to bring them up to speed as quickly as he can. But I think the notion of having the ready-made product, that quarterback that's going to come in and just hit the ground running, is pretty farcical at this point.
So how do you factor in what offense they run in college? How does that factor in the evaluation?
Well, I'm not sure I would be able to answer with any brevity how we do it, but we do it. It's a concerted effort to understand what throws he's making, what his understanding of the game and the way we like to play and the way the NFL plays it is as you move forward. And you factor all that into the decisions of, he's being asked to do something that might be very different in terms of a system and even from a technical standpoint, playing the position as he comes to our league. You should understand that. And we spent a lot of time interviewing the quarterbacks here, understanding, watching their film in college to see if there's pieces of what they've been doing in college that translate well.
Can you explain your RG3 answer in there just a little bit more? Because, if you kind of expect him to be, coming in for the offseason program in April, you would think, that you probably would have to commit to paying him the March bonus. So can you just kind of run through that again? Where do you stand with RG3?
Yeah, so Robert's on our roster today, and all the guys on our roster we expect to be back in April when the guys show back up, and I would leave it at that. We haven't made a decision one way or the other. As I think the question was, will we release Robert before the roster bonus? And that's not going to be a major decision for us one way or the other in terms of a lever in making that decision.
When you said in there, we understand you don't want to tag Terrell Pryor, but so if 4 o'clock comes and you don't have him signed, then what do you do?
Continue to work with him. We're going to be in communication with his representatives throughout, the process here, and we've got meetings set up with them, as I said. But we're absolutely going to, make a concerted effort to see if we can find some middle ground with them to keep him here long term.
So there's no way you'll tag him.
I didn't say that.
But you also said in there that you realize that he becomes a free agent unofficially, and so you understand that he will be entertaining offers.
We're realistic
when he's allowed to.
We're realistic about what goes on in India. I'd leave it at that.
But so it doesn't sound like anything is close to wrapping up with him, even though you're going to talk to.
I wouldn't comment one way or the other on. You shouldn't read anything into it on kind of where things stand with negotiations with any player.
This may be impossible to quantify, but with the picks you have, how much better do you think this team can be next year with what you're going to be able to acquire?
Substantially.
Sashi, how do you balance, as you go through this process, how do you balance the players, some players that maybe have off-field issues with how they can help your team, especially because you guys are so young? And are there issues that are just non-starters?
Yeah, there certainly are, we think about it a lot, talk through it, understand who the player is as a person, what he's gone through, when those things happen. So it's one of the major things that we factor in as we try to assess all the players. And there are so many players available to you you know, when you take on a player into your locker room that can bring some of that baggage or some of that risk along with it, you know, he better be a special guy. And even if he is, I think you need to have a plan and a confidence that he can function in your locker room.
Do you need to add a veteran? Do you need to add a veteran receiver, and will that be one of the goals of free agency?
No, and I think I said it in there. We really value Terrell. If he's not there, we're not going to panic. I think we've got opportunities in the draft and otherwise. We also have, you know, some players that will likely come available to us, and you're seeing some of them fall off other teams. That will be players that we'll understand and take a look at.
I mean, from an experience standpoint, because without Hawk, I mean, even Terrell's only played the position for a little over a year.
Right.
I mean, so is that missing in that room?
So I wouldn't look at it as in terms of tied to Terrell,
Right.
but I think you always want to have a balance of veteran leadership in there. But at the same time, as I said, you know, when our rookies get there, we expect you to hit the ground running, you know, as soon as possible. You know, there are no red shirts for any of the guys in our wide receiver room or any other room for that matter. I mean, they're expected to come in, know that playbook backward and forward, and be able to execute when they get on the field.
When you when you say that the roster bonus is not a significant lever for Roberts, the decision on Griffin, does that mean it's just not that large a figure that you can accept it if you do improve the position later? I mean, what exactly did you?
I would say it this way. I think, you know, we're going to evaluate Robert, not his contract. You know, we've had some discussions there. I wouldn't go further into detail.
Haven't you already done that, though, with all due respect? You've had almost 3 months now.
And that's why, I mean, I wouldn't go into further details on it. That's the part I wouldn't go into further details on. Yeah, no. That's
Thanks,
right. You got it.